over to Aaron.
Let's do it. We have a pretty exciting session today for everybody. We want this to be very interactive, so I see the chat already going. Feel free to continue it as we get through today's session. We're going to kick things off with our win of the week, and then, in case you hadn't realized, we have a very special guest with us. Scott Singer is here. He's going to be talking all about his role as an assessor, but more importantly, as president of Control Case and sharing some of his tips, tricks, insights all around things CMMC related. So we'll be diving into that. We do want, again, we want this to be interactive. Throw your questions into the chat, engage, come join us as a panelist, and share with the community. The last thing we'll do, we've got Elon on the line on our side. We have a few exciting enhancements coming from the platform perspective and our compliance capability. So we'll showcase those, walk through them, and then this will be the first of many times that we do some demos and talk at a deeper level about these capabilities. A lot of these came directly from your feedback in particular. So hopefully you'll see something resonate that you've shared with us before. Before I jump into win of the week, anything else, Andrew, on your side that you want to kick off with?
No, I'm just thrilled that we've got a good some. I saw Jim Ambrosini, so I hope he's coming over. I see Don. It's not often we get someone that has Scott's background. So if you guys want to ask questions and really be involved, I see Tom. I see others that I hope they jump over to the panelist side because this is a real treat.
They're up here. I see them. All right. Well, welcome, guys. Let's jump into win of the week and see if anybody wants to share to kick things off.
I'll share, Aaron. We sold out the
Please.
CCLS course in Dallas. Very grateful for you guys sponsoring dinner. I think it's going to be a lot of really exciting. Great MSPs coming. Our second time we've done this, and so it speaks to the need in the industry. So very excited.
That is amazing. Congrats. We're very excited about that one. All right, let's see. Let's see who else we've got here. I see Brad. I see Mike. Thomas without a tie. I know he's already getting ahead of it. He said it's
It's
his Friday. Fine. Thomas, do you want to share a little bit if I can put you in the hot seat? I know you just went back on mute, but you spent some time in Burlington last week and joined us at a partner meetup. Do you want to give, hopefully you consider that to be a win of your week?
Yeah, absolutely. So I spent 2 days in Burlington with the Cynomi team. It's great to be able to simply just connect as well as to understand kind of what the behind the scenes are of the platform and where you're really enhancing the partner experience, I think. And so there's a lot of things in the fire that I won't come out and steal your thunder, Aaron, as you want to release those. But from the partner side of it, it's truly becoming David's vision of kind of that core cybersecurity operating model or operating system that MSPs can use. And as the platform is progressing, as it's maturing, there's going to be a lot more opportunity to offer value, which is going to be the key to protect your client's revenue. And I think that's the main point, as well as I'm going to put the plug out there, being able to perform the webinar in person with Jack, the cadence, the timing, just the conversation felt definitely more natural from having done other Cynomi webinars in the past. And so really enjoyed that.
Oh, thank you. We got to see Anne in person too last week. Anne, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. It was great to see everybody in person. And the webinar the next day was also, that was great. So learned a lot from that. But really, it's very lucky for us. The office is just, I don't know, 20 minutes away from us, which is nice.
Yeah. Well, we've got a few more of those already planned, some key dates in Toronto, in New York, in Orlando. And if those are not regions that you are in, we will get some requests in and come to a city near you guys too. So this is good. And I won't steal too much of Jack and Thomas's thunder because I think next week they're going to be given a little bit of an overview of proving value specifically and diving into some of that workshop content. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for sharing. Let's go one PSA and then it's coming to you, Scott and Andrew. The quick recap, I just wanted to reiterate, this was a hot topic of conversation at our partner meetup. It was communicated very I don't know if you can ever do it full justice, but it was communicated on last week's community call. And this is just about the flexible licensing that has been introduced from Cynomi. Wanted to make sure this broader audience heard it. For a long time, Cynomi was recognized as having what's considered our pro license, kind of full compliance, advisory, GRC all in one. We have expanded the way that we are making licensing options available to you so that we meet you where you're at, but also that it enables you to meet your clients where they're at on their cybersecurity journeys. So this is us bringing forward one-time assessments as a standalone offering, can be one or multiple packs, all the way up to 20 licenses per pack. In the event you have a client that transitions from this one-time assessment into a core pro license, you get that one back. So we're going to continue to fulfill that package for you as you continue to progress clients from a one-time into a recurring license. Our Cynomi Core, this is new, this is exciting, and it's going to be something we continue to talk about and try to bring use cases forward to this community on. This is offering basically what I would call cybersecurity foundation. This is an entry point, more ideal for an SMB client, someone that is kind of getting their foot wet, looking to have a baseline of security posture. And it's a very task-driven approach to kind of that entry point into cybersecurity. It does not involve compliance, which is staying in the full Cynomi Pro license. This is the one you know and love. Compliance, GRC, full advisory, risk management, BIA, BCP, the full gamut of Cynomi is still in our Pro license. And then the last change being TPRM, our third-party risk management. This capability is, of course, available to be stacked with Cynomi Core and Pro, but it is also now available as a standalone. So if you wanted to have a client that is exclusively on TPRM, that is possible and available to you from here on out.
Yeah, I think what I love about this that we've done here, Aaron, is the ability to mix and match. You know, we talk about all the time. We're always talking to MSPs, MSSPs, virtual CISOs, fractional CISOs, all these businesses. And when you have that one package that we've had for so long, it really makes it difficult, right? Especially when maybe only 20% of your client base needs the big bad pro and all the features, right? Now that we have, 4 different licensing ways and the ability to mix and match those, that's, to me, and I know I'm biased because I work here, but as using my MSP brain, the thing I loved about us doing this is it allows me to bring security to every client, as you've been preaching, right? It allows the ability for me as the MSP or the service provider in general to make the decision on what's best for my business and combine a package where I can have what's right for me, not what's right for somebody other than me.
Yeah.
So on that note,
All
I
right.
actually have a question.
Go ahead.
So we actually do have a client that wants to do third-party risk management with us. And one of the things that we were looking at this morning is there wasn't a way to set repeating tasks for third parties or for vendors. And I was wondering if there was something that we could be pointed at or some sort of pamphlet or something that we could look at that goes more in depth into that.
I am going to wait for Elon to jump in and chime in, and if not, we will ping you right after this.
Okay.
Yeah,
Elon, I see you there.
I'm more than curious to see if I'm missing anything, but there is on a task level the ability to set up a repeating task, right? So that includes for any sort of task. So if it's like on a third-party vendors, that's fine. The other classic use cases, I know in this case we're talking about CMMC. Think about cybersecurity awareness training. Is it going to be every 3 months or is it going to be monthly? That depends on the client, right? Depends on what you're trying to achieve with them, but the functionality is there. So unless I'm missing something, I'm happy to hop on a call.
I can illuminate you a little bit. So if there's multiple vendors and we're tracking them through the shared vendor portal, I can't remember what it's called, but through that area, is there a way per vendor to set tasks? Because the way it is now, it looks like they're all linked. So all the tasks are linked. So you would have to set like an outside ticket at the moment to track those types of tasks. But it would be nice if it was integrated into Cynomi so we didn't have to venture outside to like ITSM. Does that make sense? So like, for example, if if we needed to every year get a certification or an audit from a vendor, is there a way to set that per vendor so that we would get a notification from Cynomi, or we could send an email notification to the vendor for that particular item? So like if we needed a SOC 2 again, or some evidence. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. We'll pass it on to the product team because it's not per
Great.
vendor. There is one
Okay.
that will say go and assess vendors annually or on a cadence. On that
Right.
task you can set up as repeating, so at least there's
Right.
something in place that changes and breathing and living.
Yeah.
But we'll take this feedback back to the product team.
Thank you.
So this is Patrick chiming in from the Cynomi team. Mike, I've got that feedback from other partners as well. And conversation that I've had with our team internally is to add a field at the either shared or client level, probably both, for
Right.
next assessment date. So currently we're tracking, hey, we went through the security assessment or the impact assessment on this date, adding
Right.
another field that kind of becomes that recurring task, but it's living within third-party risk management. So kind of outside of the flow that Alon just outlined for a repeating task at the macro level. I believe that is a improvement that we're planning on making, but we can follow up with you after the fact.
Okay. Great. I appreciate that.
So, thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. All right. Scott and Andrew, this is going to become your show here. I'll jump to the slide with a little bit of background, but I'll pass it over to you guys.
Fantastic. And again, Scott, thanks for joining. Thanks for your service. Perfect setup here where I just wanted to maybe to level set for everybody your background and how you got into the world of the DIB, CMMC, and some of the roles you currently play that affect a lot of the people on this call.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. Thanks. What can I tell you about CMMC?
Well, no, let's tell a little bit about your background because I think it's really tangential to what you're doing. And then we'll get into it. I do want to ask you something about TPRM because I think there's a piece there too. But how about just kind of like a background and so people can get an understanding of what you've done in your life. I think it's important.
Sure. I spent 30 years with the U.S. Navy and retired actually in 2018. 6 years of it were active, 24 reserve. And I worked for a number of years. So I've actually retired from two jobs, retired from Medtronic and retired from the Navy. Both of them, when I look back at my career, both were very mission-driven organizations. And that what is something that kind of drives me. And I think it is what led me into this whole CMMC space. And believe it or not, back in 2013, I was attacked by APT1 and had to kind of live through that whole kind of cybersecurity situation where I had to go report and try and live through a board meeting where I was explaining this whole situation to them. But that's really when all of this NIST, CMMC, and all that stuff started, goes all the way back to 2013. After that, that really got me sucked into this. Spent 10 years there at this company as a defense contractor, got really heavily involved in export control, and then have also had a lot of experience on the quality systems side. So with both Medtronic and at my last company, PAR. So all of these things kind of come together and help me kind of fit in this current space I'm in now, which is cybersecurity, defense contractors. I also do some med device, cybersecurity also. So that's me.
Awesome. Thanks for the background. So APT1, you didn't get the Panda or some kind of cool name with CrowdStrike at the time, or was it just APT1?
It was Fancy Bear.
Fancy Bear? Okay.
Yeah, Fancy Bear.
They have the best names. Some of them I can't even pronounce, but they certainly have their prolifery of names.
Yes, they do.
So, one thing, I know today's very CMMC focused, Scott, but one thing we talk about a lot, and it came up on the last slide, is third-party risk management, TPRM. And you mentioned Medtronic. Now, what a lot of people don't know about your role at Medtronic was you only were responsible for 368 facilities across 120 countries, right? So, pretty small footprint. If you could jet back in time, right, time machine with what we have dealing with today, so kind of like think about third-party risk, but let's first talk about AI because it's one of the things that's come up quite a bit. AI is a third-party risk. There was a great article actually out recently, even on vibe coding, right, and how you can just anyway, I won't get too off track, but it's fascinating to me the amount of third-party risk this is creating. How might you approach that with the size of a small nation? And, for those that are dealing with it here, company by company, any recommendations?
Well, first of all, when I was dealing with it at Medtronic, I'd worry about like a pacemaker getting explanted and put into a new body, right? That was my third party risk. What we have today with AI, it's everywhere, right? There's no kind of it's nationless, it's borderless, it's just ubiquitous, right? To use another IOUS word. Anyway, it's kind of all over the place. So the risk is just is I'm just another scenario. Our CFO wants to use the, kind of the listening chat bot on your Teams meeting to help translate and put, the notes, makes it easier to, transcribe the meeting, right? And so you have to think about that for a minute, okay? What are you saying in that meeting, right?
Hmm.
Because it's taking voice to text. And who owns that information now? Right? I mean, if you had some really sensitive meeting, it's now just been sucked into some chat GPT or Claude or whatever engine you're using. It's now out in the wild. You could have just exported, sensitive data that you had no idea you were doing. So I don't know exactly where you want to go with this, Andrew, but I can tell you some things that we've been thinking about lately when it comes to AI, and you want to try and integrate it into some of the things you're doing in your company. Well, it's another external connection, right, that your company has. And so you have to put controls in place to manage that external connection. Okay. Are you going to have rules that are going to limit any sensitive data going out to that AI engine? Is it an AI engine? It's closed? Is it open? There's an AI, there's a Copilot instance now in Azure GCC Hive, for example. Okay. Well, that one is sovereign, meaning it's all the information's located in the United States. Okay. So supposedly that can then allow you to share CUI and export control like ITAR there, right? But it's so all these different things you have to think about when you're going to use AI. Uh, do you know if the data is good? Has the data been poisoned, right? Is it biased, right? All these things. The other thing I think I mentioned to you before, which is I see a lot when I'm looking at system security plans these days. You can tell right away when it's written by an AI. And it's just like, okay, I know it's written by an AI. And that can be okay. That can be perfectly fine, but it has to be what you're actually doing, right?
Right. Right,
So
right, right. For
anyway,
sure.
that's probably enough kind of musing on AI, but there's a lot to kind of unpack there.
Yeah, there is. And maybe if we have time at the end, Aaron, we'll talk a little more about third-party risk. But in regards to CMMC, can you kind of help us talk about level one versus level two and what the gap is? And is it like, some people are like, oh, it's a monstrous leap. Others are doing it like I know, right, on the call, like Jim Ambrosini is dived in, head first. And I think they're on, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 their L2s. But can you kind of maybe break it down on the big differences and is it feasible? And what do people have to, what are they up against as an MSP to get into this?
Sure. Just kind of, I've seen some numbers from DoD. They kind of predict about 300,000 defense contractors need to meet level one, and about 118,000 need to meet level two, just kind of to level set. I think the number is higher on level two personally, but in any event, level one, it doesn't have a score. Okay, so you have to either, you know, you have to be doing all 15 of those requirements and meeting them, or, you don't pass level one. Okay, but all level one is a self-attest that you're doing it. And then you post a score in the supplier performance risk system, assuming again that you're doing this as a DoD contractor. And yeah, you self-attest it, and it's 15 requirements. You don't have to have a written plan for it, but it's recommended that you do have a written plan for those 15 requirements. Then ideally, it should be a system security plan, but that's kind of the focus. And the focus of level one is on FCI, federal contract information. So think contracts from the government to a company, financial information, those types of, things going back and forth. And this is, normally this is going to be around you're providing, food to a base, or you're providing commercial parts. They're all going to fall into that level one. Now, level two, it is quite a leap going from these 15 requirements to the level 210 controls, and it has 320 assessment objectives. So there's really 320 things you got to do. And it does have a scoring system, and you either are going to be a self-attest or you're going to need a third-party assessment. And again, this is, getting implemented in November, where it's going to start showing up in some contracts as a requirement. But what you're going to see in a contract, you're going to see a DFARS, and it's going to be DFARS 252, 204, 70, 25. And that DFARS is going to tell you whether you can self-attest or you have to have a third party come in and do the assessment. And that's basically the two different levels at a high level.
Yeah. And what's your gut tell you? You've done a lot of assessments already. You're very integral in understanding what, as the head of the Cyber AV Advisory Council, what the Department of War is expecting. What percent do you think of those level twos are going to accept self-attestation?
I have no idea. What's really driving this, honestly, is that the primes are saying you need to get level two. Okay. Right now, well before the requirement is coming from the Department of War. I mean, it's getting flowed down right now. I mean, you just go out and you can see the memos flying around LinkedIn all the time.
I saw the L3 Harris one. It was like,
Right.
yeah, I mean, if
Like,
you're in that, yeah, if you're in that supply chain, you're, I'll spare everybody with the acronym I want to use, but you better get your
it
ducks,
started now.
yeah,
So,
really fast.
I don't even, I have no idea what that percentage is going to be, but think about the risk that a contracting officer wants to accept. They're going to want to put this on every contract, right? Because they don't want to, kind of get beat up
Right.
for accepting any risk for the DOW. So,
Sure. Then what you said, can we get the DFAR citation in chat? Can you help us? Is he in panel, or is he
I think I can put it in if
okay.
I click everyone. And
Yeah.
it's really the one you want to look for if you're looking at your contract. And it is already showing up in some places that and it's really short. It's a short little, clause that shows up, and it will just tell you which one you got to do. Level one, level two, DIBCAC assessment, level 3, whatever it is.
Got it. So when you, I know you have stories, but when you start doing an assessment with an MSP involved,
Mm-hmm.
what 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 would you feel like maybe you can use stories, but what's the biggest disconnect you typically see where the MSP is like, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing, and you're start asking a few assessment questions. I think what was it? Access control is the first big one, right?
Right.
Yeah, and but is there a tell that you're like, oh man, this isn't gonna go well? Aside from maybe they're a tad defensive at times. I don't know if you've ever dealt with that.
Sure. The ones that are good, that are really taking care of their clients or customers tend not to get defensive. But there's pride of ownership, right? It's like,
Yeah.
it's your company that you're supporting, right? And you want to stick up for them and everything else. And I know I'm going down a little tangent here, but as when we're doing assessments, we really want to try and create a non-confrontational kind of situation assessment where it's, we want people to pass, right? We want the company to get through it, okay? And so a good C3PAO is going to do what they can to help the company get through it. All right. And there are some things you can do. Now, we don't want to compromise, security or anything like that, but we want to look for ways that you're going to pass. And the MSP, they're a critical component to so many small businesses. The small business wants to make widgets, right, and make money. They don't want to worry about, passing some CMMC level 2 assessment. That's not their top priority. The CEO would rather, buy another bass boat than spend money on cybersecurity, trust me.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
in any event, uh, the I guess, what have I seen? Again, the being defensive thing is a big thing. But when we walk in, the biggest thing I'm looking for is the MSP their environment in scope for the assessment or not?
Hmm.
Okay. Is there some kind of path that's within the scope of the boundary for the assessment I need to do? Are they taking data from the company and storing it at the MSP? Are they doing the backups for the company? That's the first thing I look for. Sometimes they don't even think about that, but if the backups are stored in
Hmm.
MSP Colo or an MSP site, that path is in scope wherever that data is going, and it's part of the assessment. So that's when it can make sense for an MSP to look at getting CMMC level 2 certified, right? Because they're storing, processing, or transmitting CUI. And so they need to be if they're doing it on behalf of the company. And that does make the path for the company to get assessed quicker if the
Hmm.
MSP has gone down that path. So that's the big thing, is like, what do I need to assess when I walk in, when I've got external service providers like an MSP that's helping the company meet the requirements?
How important is shared responsibility, the shared responsibility matrix? How important is that to be filled out well that can give you a tell and kind of helps you understand is the MSP in scope or are they not?
Sure. It's critical. It's the SSP is the most important document for me. Okay. And then the SRM, if there are external service providers, is kind of second. And
Okay.
the two of them should, coexist together. And it should be obvious, that if obvious, the shared responsibility is really critical, that it explains what the MSP is doing and what the company is doing,
Yeah.
right? There's a good understanding of how that works. And if it's written well, it's really helpful for us as we go in to do the assessment. We're going to walk into the assessment with a better feeling about the whole situation if it's well written.
Very good. Erin,
I'm seeing that there's a lot of head nods from a few people on here, so I just want to open up the floor a little bit.
yeah, for sure.
Jim, Jim, I
Yeah.
saw you nodding and going. It feels like it could be a therapy session for you.
Oh, no, everything hits spot on. The SSP is critical. So where we help companies, taking them to CMMC compliance, and when we onboard them, sometimes we'll do the SSP for them, and in many cases they'll have one already prepared. And we learn just from going through audits and whatnot that SSP has to be really, really tight. And Scott, to your point, we could tell right away too that when it's AI creates it, and you could tell right away because this is one of the things a lot of companies do, whether they use AI for this or they're just doing it themselves. But it kind of like states the control without getting into the details, right? So it'll say like, it'll be like, control X is, um, termination sessions are established. Then it'll say, the company, sets termination sessions. We take this very seriously. It's established, and it goes on and on and on and on, like describing. And it's just like, I just need a number. I just need a figure. Like, what is this?
30 minutes or
Yeah,
whatever, right? Tell me.
Yeah. Because what a lot of and it's important to realize what a lot of the assessors do, generally they go right from the SSP. It's just like, you stated this, show me this. And we learned from going through an assessment ourselves where, let's say our SSP wasn't that great because we're, kind of learning, but we had great policies. We're like, oh, that's established in the policy. And it's like, well, no, I'm going from here. It's almost like the SSP is the real system of record, so to speak. So it's really got to be, who, what, where, when, how to describe that.
Don't write a book too. It's like
Right.
Well, there's two like different scenarios. One, like you said, all of a sudden I'll get like a 3-page, SSP to answer that one control that all they had to do was 30 minutes, right? And
Yeah.
then the other thing is they'll point to some access control policy and it's 40 pages long and they just point to the policy but don't tell me where it is in the policy. I mean, I really don't want to have to read every page as an assessor.
Yeah.
I'm really just trying to find out, how do you authorize users to have access to CY? Just where is a alpha in your document? Just tell me where. And it's like, anyway.
Yeah.
Thanks.
There was one other question, Andrew. Patrick, do you want to go?
Oh yeah, I'll piggyback off of this conversation that we're having right now, because obviously the SSP is arguably the most important piece for the OSC going through the assessment, right? But I think Jim and I have had a conversation about C3PAOs getting access to a GRC platform. Cynomi is a platform that the majority of our partners on this call are using to help track the implementation of 800.171 for their clients. In your experience, because I know it's mixed depending on who you talk to, are you having any OSCs and their MSPs coming to you and saying, log into my platform to view this documentation? Or are they typically coming to you and saying, here's our body of evidence, here's our SSP? What are you seeing in the wild?
So, yes, I am fine with getting like guest access, for example, to if you're storing all the artifacts, all the information, current SSP, POAMs, whatever, in a GRC tool, I'm fine using that GRC tool. Now, there does come the time at the end of the assessment where we have to do the hashing of all the artifacts that we looked at. As long as you've got a process built into the tool that can export that into the old boring, process the Department of, War wants, then I'm fine with that. Now, there are some C3PAOs that don't like to use the GRC tool. I do know that. But there's nothing that precludes, there's nothing written anywhere that says that. There are, as an aside, the information normally that's stored right in your GRC tool should not be CUI. So you want to try and keep CUI artifacts out. But just to be aware, DIBCAC really views GRC tools like they need to be FedRAMP compliant, where the reality is that if you're not putting CUI in the GRC tool, it technically doesn't. But again, the problem you're going to run into is that DIBCAC wants it, right? And so, you run into that problem. So I don't know if you've come across that at Cynomi or not.
Well, yeah, that's typically the line that we toe is, hey, this is not a system designed to store, process, or transmit CUI, right? You should not be storing that here in our system. But no, it's a great point, and I think it's evolving as the ecosystem grows, right? I do have just one more comment about a point you made earlier, because I work with partners on a daily basis, like I think over 100 right now. So I've got plenty of fun stories to pull from. And in my previous life, I worked for an external service provider, and I remember having a conversation with someone from General Dynamics Mission Systems, I believe, and they basically, echoed what you said. As a contracting officer, we have thousands of suppliers on our supply chain. They are not checking the contracts for all thousand suppliers they work with to say, are they getting FCI? Are they getting CUI? Is this level 1? Is this level 2? They're throwing out a blanket statement as a CYA to say, just get your level 2. What I'm now hearing from partners is you have a small business manufacturer, for example, that's getting told by their contracting officer that you need to be level 2, and they're getting what seems to be FCI marked as CUI. And I don't want to get into a whole like mismarking rabbit hole. But what are your thoughts on, and I guess empowering our partners that are on the call, being able to be that trusted advisor for a client to say, hey, we need to push back on this a little bit because I don't think this purchase order is actually CUI, or whatever the case may be.
Sure. Now, obviously, it's a little easy to push back if it's a commercial agreement between a prime and a subprime, in the supply chain, right? It's more difficult if you're the prime going back to the contracting officer at the government agency to do it. But in either case, you're well within your rights to go back and argue your point, okay? You're kind of stuck though the minute you accept that purchase order with that DFARS on it that says you need to be 7012 and you didn't fight it. It's yours, right? So understanding the difference between FCI and CUI, if you're really a commercial, part maker for the government, you really should push back and work at that. But if you're in one of those situations where you're mixed, where you got both FCI and CUI, suck it up and get your level 2.
So,
Thanks,
awesome.
Patrick.
Scott, just real quick, Mike, make sure I put in the right guide, and just so hashing here, it's not about encryption, it's really about tracking, correct? Vince made a comment, or just wanted clarification.
It's a form of encryption, but that guide is for I need the company at the end of the assessment. They have to run this PowerShell script that creates the hash, okay? And there's two things I have to add. One is the hash of the whole directory structure of all the files and everything that was used for the assessment, the SSP, the SRM, all the artifacts, anything that was looked at, reviewed has to be part of this hash. And then there's a file that thing program creates that has the individual hashes for each program. So there's a hash of the whole thing, and then there's a hash for each of the items. And I have to put that file name and the overall hash, I have to put that into a spreadsheet that gets uploaded into the system called EMAS. And that's the system I use, and DIPCAC uses the same system. They use it for the level 3 assessments, and I use it to get your level 2. And once I put all that information in, it goes over to SPUR's Supplier Performance Risk System, and it then now will show that you've had a CMMC level 2 final certificate.
Got it. Got it. Thanks for that, Scott.
Sure.
All right. Aaron, do I have time for one or two more?
Totally.
All right. So let's talk mock assessment, Scott. This came up quite a bit. I know your partiality or lack thereof to it, so I want you to explain your thoughts on it. Should MSPs that are two-part question. Should MSPs considering getting in to this? Is that a decent investment, right? If they're like, hey, we're trying to become level 2, is that a decent investment for them? And when and why should maybe one of their clients do the mock? So
Yeah, so mock assessment is the way we do it. It's a full assessment, but it doesn't count as a CMMC level 2 assessment. All right. So we call it, it's really a NIST 800-171 assessment. And you have to put some disclaimers on it. The DoD wanted us to put on the actual report that we give, and to make sure that people know it's not a CMMC level 2 assessment. Okay. We'll tell you whether you're met or non-met, and we'll tell you why it wasn't met, but we don't provide consulting. So that allows us to then do the actual assessment. So what's the benefit about that? Well, I can tell you that we've had no clients, and we've had 63 now, maybe 64 certificates issued. We've had none that went through the mock and then did the level 2 assessment fail. Okay. It's everybody that's done that process, they pass. Okay. So highly recommend it. We have the same assessor that does the mock, do the real assessment. So you're not going to get a different answer the second time around, right? You're going to get the same answer. So and this is the best guarantee of getting through this process is to do this. Okay. Now, I do have some folks, like you can be like a really good MSP, right? And be really good at helping your client get ready. And you've got, CCAs on staff and, great, right? If I was working with you guys, I would negotiate, kind of a scenario, but I would still want to take the mock assessment side, even though you might have done it yourself, because you get to know the assessor, you get to know, and you know what? The company can request to get a different assessor if you guys don't get along, right? During the mock. And so you can say, hey, you know what? Halfway through the mock, you can say, I don't like this guy, or give me
Right.
somebody else, right? So there's all kinds of good reasons to do it beyond just the MSP thinking that they really know this stuff and they've got their client ready. So why should my client pay for a mock assessment with a C3PAO? I really think there are good reasons to do it.
For sure. Vince, just to clarify, he asked Scott, who does it? How do you perform it? So I think you mentioned just at the end it's the C3PAO, but maybe give a sense of your recommendation there.
Yeah, I mean, mock, it's not a real, although it is mock, that term actually is mentioned once in the preamble in 32 CFR Part 170, but it's not defined or anything or anywhere, right? It's not really part of the rule. So it's whatever you want it to be that you want to sell as a consultant, right? I'm just, so we use that term mock because kind of it's industry known, okay? But I don't know, did I answer the question? I can't remember.
Yeah, I think it's, you the best course of action would be to, like you say, if I'm hiring control case, I want to hire them. I want to find out they're going to do my real one also. Do I like this assessor? Do I not? Do you have another person? Et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I think we got it. Jim.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, one of the things that we did, because we were getting a lot of resistance from our clients, not as much as we touted the benefit, right? They're, oh, I'm not paying for that. You're supposed to get me ready and blah, blah, blah. So it's like, okay. So I had to come up with something. So we kind of came up with this thing. I call it a mini mock, where I would say, all right, if you're not going to pay for the full mock assessment, how about we get an external C3PO to come in and look at some of the higher value deal breaker controls, those 3 and 5 pointers, where if you fail one of them, it's like, no pass go, right? You fail the assessment. Or even a pared down version of that, where let's say we were implementing something, very quickly, or we had a change in architecture. It's like, look, I'd feel a lot better if I had a separate pair of eyes. And that everybody went for that. And in fact, we started baking it into our pricing now. We're like, we're going to pay for some of it from the revenue we get, and the client would pay for. So we're subsidizing because we feel it's so
Interesting.
important, because we don't want them to fail for a lot of reasons. And if they didn't want to go with the full one, that's an option that had worked for us.
Now I'm putting on my company hat. I'm like going, I like that
Yeah,
idea.
the mini mock. Is that trademark, Jim?
Now,
Mini-mock.
free to use it.
So we did, Jim, we would do a control sampling is what we called it, where we
Yeah,
would do like 20 or the top 10 that DibCAC said were the most failed. We would
yeah,
do things like
exactly
that.
right.
We kind of moved away from that and gone to the full
The full
110.
mock. Yeah,
But we reduce our cost. I mean, we lower our cost of the whole thing. Because you think about it, it helps us because we'll actually use the EMAS spreadsheet for the mock. So we'll
yeah,
start filling it out there. So then when you go do the real assessment, we're like, 40, 50% done already. And
yeah.
it goes just a lot quicker. So we pass that efficiency on
Mhm.
to the
That's
client.
great.
We want them to do it, right?
Mhm.
So,
And last question, and
sure.
Yeah, I think Jim kind of touched upon this point. There's a risk to an MSP that we don't want somebody going out there and then failing. So the mock assessment, they may resist the cost. I'm wondering what you're seeing out there for you opened up with a good assessor is going to they want you to pass, but
Yeah.
there's probably a range of folks out there, and it's a little bit of the Wild West because I guess there's a lot of money involved. What are you seeing in terms of uh, like I don't know, we're trying to we're very early days into this. We work with much smaller companies, and I'm worried about the risk. And what are you seeing about the range of assessors out there? I've heard stories of like if your actual security is more stringent than what you said it was, there's assessors out there that will just, you fail, it didn't match. Like what are you seeing? Is it getting better? What do we look out for?
Yeah, so I'm gonna kind of put on my cyber AB hat, although I don't speak for the AB. I'm just part of their advisory group that gives them, advice in this area. Uh, However, we're seeing things start to get better. But, one of the things is 32 CFR rule says you can have unlimited, it doesn't say anything at all. So you can have unlimited number of document changes you make to the SSP. So in the case where, let's say you're more strict in your system, let's say your system says we're gonna, session lockout is 15 minutes, but the SSP, it says 30 minutes. Okay. Well, I'm good with the 15 minutes. That's great. Just go fix your SSP. Okay. Just change it. You can change it during the assessment and make it 15 and have them both match. Okay. So those types of things should be allowed. And we're trying to build this body of knowledge, okay, that's going to have a lot of these different scenarios for each of the controls and how to make those interpretations so that we can get some more consistency in how the assessors are looking at this. I do see this and quite a bit where there's quite a range in how they're looking at this. I put out my own guidance for my assessors that says, hey, here is, my ideas. We want companies to pass. You can have unlimited document changes, no fight club during the assessment, things like that. So anyway, yeah, I think it's getting better. It should get better over time, man. But you're right. Right now, it's a little rough.
All right, thank you.
Great question, Ann. Aaron, over to you.
Yeah, look, I think
Thank you, by the way. Awesome.
no, absolutely. There's actually one more question from Jack in the chat. I think, Elon, what we'll do, I'll give you the closing floor just to comment on compliance. We won't do the full demo, but the last question we had, do you see a lot of organizations pursuing CMMC that are not scoped properly? Like, are we seeing that as a miss here? So it called out properly scoping is critical for certification. Underscoring can lead to quick failure, and overscoping may make the process seem unachievable. Is the scoping a big issue that you're seeing?
It is. I mean, scoping it is a big issue. We tend to, again, that's what's great about the mock, because you'll find it in the mock. Okay. You'll be going through and all of a sudden you'll say, wait a minute, you're talking to Claude or Chat GPT. It's an external, system you're talking to. And that's normally what we find is way more external connections than what they were thinking. And that's where we say, hey, you need to update this, update that. So then when we actually go into the assessment, it's good. But yes, if you don't have that mock, you need to find it in the scoping call. But in the scoping call, you've already started phase 1 of the CMMC assessment process, right? And then what you end up doing is if it's wrong and you find it in that call, and again, it's a short call. It's like about a half hour, maybe an hour call where you're trying to go through everything in their environment. You're not going to catch everything, right? And then if you catch it during the actual assessment, it costs more, right? Because now it's like, okay, can we pause the assessment? Will DOW allow that to pause it so you can go back and fix whatever the issues are? Anyways, it's costs more money and time.
Appreciate it. Well, Scott, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing these insights and driving this forward with Andrew. Our closing comments and kind of narrative here have also come from this community's feedback. So at the end of this month, there are a few different enhancements to our compliance capability that will be rolling out. I think for those of you that do support CMMC level 1 and level 2, there are going to be some pretty direct advantages to that. Elon, I'll give you the floor for closing comments on this if you'd like, and then we will tease this out with a full demo before the end of the month.
Absolutely. All right. So for the ones of you who are very familiar with the platform, we're creating some few enhancements on different areas. By the way, we're focusing today on the compliance portion of it, and in particularly the CMMC. So the first and foremost, I think the verified controls. You know how the controls today works within the Cynomi platform. It correlates back to the tasks, which are great stuff because it tells you simply saying what needs to be done and how. So verifying the control, because at the end of the day, that is what you need to present during the assessment. So manually checking the controls and verifying those. That would be one note that we put in there. A few other things when it comes to the SSP, so including notes and the control language when it comes to the CMMC practice in particularly. So that's very important as part of the assessment. While the tasks are super valuable, at the end of the day, Scott and other friends are not familiar with the Cynomi tasks. There's a control language and criteria language that should be included in there that is going to be part of the SSP. And one of the most important things, I think, and exciting things that we have as part of the enhancements is that the evidence now will be possible to be collected and uploaded per control or per criteria in that case. So while today we're collecting it per task, which is great because you still have the breakdown of the different pieces that needs to be completed, but sometimes we need to provide different types of evidences as part of the controls. For example, if it's a screenshot, policy, configuration, whatever that is that we call out and we need to do, so it will be on the control level. The last thing that I will mention is that another thing that is coming up as part of it, which would make this operation much, much more efficient and easier to use on our side and on your side as you go through it, whether you onboard gentlemen like Scott or others onto the platform, the file management. So that would include a repository of all the different evidences across the platform. That includes the controls, of course, like when I'm speaking about CMMC, so not including the CUI in there, but other evidences that needs to be in there, consolidated between the policies themselves, or any of the other items would be in one place. So all of that and more, we'll show that, we'll cover that, demo it, talk about it. Hopefully that's enough for today.
No, that's the perfect tease. And hopefully we've got a few people nodding, going, good, I requested those things and they are coming. So this is perfect.
Well, thank
It'll
you
be
for
live by the end of the month.
That's probably where we are.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I didn't want to make everybody wait until it was actually live. It felt like it tied nicely to what Scott was sharing. The tease for next week, we have an amazing MSP leader, John Snyder from NetFriends, is going to be joining us, sharing his and his team's top use cases. But John is someone that I consider to be very, very strong in the marketing and go-to-market side of things. He's brought some really unique approaches to prospecting, to life, to how he manages his existing client life cycle. And he has a lot of fun with it. So I think he's going to bring a very unique conversation and a way to showcase the platform to the community. So stay tuned for him next week, guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. And Scott, thank you. Really appreciate your expertise here.
Yeah, enjoyed it. Thanks.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Aaron. Thanks,
all.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye bye.